I expanded my palate, straightened my nose, fixed my overbite, cured my sleep apnea, improved my breathing, and changed my face and looks forever through one simple technique, thumb pulling. This is the full guide on how to do thumb pulling 2.0. For the last months, I've worked with NCR specialists, craniosacral therapists, and osteopaths to develop the perfect technique to allow people to improve their looks by fixing the real root cause, their health. What you need to realize is that we would all be supermodels, we would all be good looking if we had perfect diet, environment, habits, and lifestyle from birth. But the reality is we don't. Our chewing, swallowing, breathing, and posture are all absolutely cooked. As a result, we need to do recorrective techniques to push ourselves back on track and to become the absolute best version of ourselves in every aspect. This is where thumb pulling comes in. And for the people that think my transformation was just puberty, even though you can't straighten your nose, expand your palate, etc., just through puberty, what you need to realize is that this has transformed thousands of people. This isn't just a gimmick. This isn't just a weird cringe term. This is a real technique and objectively improved their appearance and health. So without further ado, let's get into it. What is thumb pulling 2.0? How are you going to perform it? And what is a rough routine that you can implement right now to start taking action? No lies, no scams, straight to the point, gold dust. What you need to realize is that your skull is made up of 22 bones which are connected by sutures, and these sutures are meant to be malleable. They are meant to shift, they are meant to loosen, they are meant to adapt. In the exact same way the layer of connective tissue that goes throughout your entire body, the fascia is meant to lengthen, adapt, and be loose, but also tense at the same time. So the purpose of thumb pulling is to loosen the fascia, loosen the sutures, so that when you have proper tongue posture, when you have proper chewing, swallowing, and breathing, you get rid of all of the tension from the negative habits you've had your entire life, and you're allowed to then adapt and lengthen the muscles, and the muscles then lead to adaptations in the bone, and as a result, you're able to become the best version of yourself. What you need to start with is you need to start by loosening the fascia, obviously. Before I even show you thumb pulling 2.0, you need to have a decent routine of what you're doing where you're first loosening the fascia. What I would recommend is that you begin by firstly doing something like zygo pulling, which is basically, it sounds again like a cringe crazy term, but all you're doing is you're putting your thumbs under the zygomatic maxillary suture inside your mouth, right under your cheekbone, and you're massaging upwards and outwards. The reason it will be sore and tense is because you store a lot of epicranial fascial tension there, and you need to loosen it and get rid of it for everything to adapt and for your sutures to properly loosen and your mid-palatal suture. If you combine this with something like massaging your palate, you're also further loosening the fascia. And at the same time, if you go even one step further by doing something like tongue chewing or stretching your tongue, you're loosening the fascia which is stuck in your tongue, which is the main place and purpose of the epicranial fascia. And at the same time, do something like a massage along your palate like this. Literally going back and forth while in a chin tuck. And you'll feel it, a slight bit of tension being finally relieved. If you were to combine this with full body stretches, something like stretching your neck, like this, or even training your neck beforehand, or even something like a cobra pose or some kind of yoga movement where you're stretching and lengthening everything, you're going to loosen everything so that when you thumb pull, it all becomes much more effective. By the way, obviously this is just a rough guideline. If you want to know which fascia loosening exercises are best for you, which routine that you should follow, dependent on your circumstances, you're more than welcome to speak to me directly and we can create a personalized plan. All you need to do is join the community. The link is in the description. There's no pressure to do so. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. As simple as that. No cringe plugs here. That is a rough idea of a rough routine you can do. You need to be loosening the fascia. You need to be loosening the fascia in your entire body, then loosening it in your tongue, and then massaging your face, ideally through zygo pulling and through massaging your palate. If you were to do that, everything's loose, everything's efficient, and then from there, you can perform thumb pulling 2.0. Now, the premise of thumb pulling 2.0 is it includes a proper fascial release. Rather than just holding thumb pulling for X amount of time and trying to provide upward and outward pressure to shift the bones, which isn't the way it actually works, you're loosening the fascia, loosening the sutures, so that when you have proper tongue posture, chewing, swallowing, and breathing throughout the entirety of the day, or you're using something like a myo brace, for example, which again you don't have to use, but is a potential benefit. I wouldn't recommend anyone getting one right now unless you know actual sizing and whether it's worth it for you, because it can cause root absorption, etc. But if you were to loosen the fascia, loosen the sutures, that's the really effective part of thumb pulling. So rather than holding it for 30 seconds or a minute, what you're going to do is obviously stand up against the wall, put your feet forward 6 inches, tuck your chin to your neck, hold the chin tuck position because this stabilizes the superficial front line and the deep frontal line, which then allows you to stabilize everything. If you're worried about asymmetry, you can't cause asymmetry because you're chin tucked. If you start pushing like this, your head literally goes to one side. You will feel your head coming off of the wall or shifting to one side. The whole point of the wall and the chin tuck is to stabilize the body. So if you're providing even pressure on each side of your palate when you're against the wall chin tucking, you literally can't cause asymmetry. You're actually preventing asymmetry and improving it because you're balancing out your palate. An asymmetrical palate is the #1 cause of asymmetry in people because then it causes asymmetry within the muscles. So absolute source from moi. What you're going to do is then you're going to hold the chin tuck, and from there you're going to position your thumbs in your palate. Now there are 3 base spots of your palate. There's the front, the middle, and the back. The most important by a mile is the middle because this also loosens the mid-palatal suture. The others are useful because they loosen different parts of your fascia. But let's prioritize the middle part of your palate. So you're going to hold the chin tuck, put your thumbs in the middle of your palate, have your feet forward and obviously be standing against the wall. You're going to tuck your chin all the way to your neck. You're going to resist with your chin, touch your chin all the way to your neck, as many double chins as possible. Push upwards and outwards with your thumbs, and you're going to hold it for as long as possible. Now, the important thing here is if you do it genuinely intensely, you shouldn't be able to hold it for more than 8 to 12 seconds. And this is really important. You need to have your chin fully tucked to your neck. So the moment your chin comes up off of your neck, what you should do is stop resisting with your neck, maintain the pressure with your thumbs, and drive upwards like this. If you do that, that's going to cause a fascial release because you're going to loosen the mid-palatal suture and you're going to shift the pressure and you're going to stop resisting with your neck. All of the pressure goes onto your palate, becomes very easy. It's like a kind of like speed boost thing. You know, that's the way to do it. It's a catalyst for good habits. It's a recorrective technique, and that's the base of Thumbpulling 2.0. Now, here's the really important part. What you're going to do is rather than doing 30-second holds and then repeating and doing it 25 times a day, you are going to set a timer on your phone for 3 minutes. You're going to constantly follow up throughout that 3-minute timer, repeating. Ideally, if you're doing it properly, you're going to hear these very faint sounds, which are like a door creaking. It's very faint, not painful, nothing sounds. It's the exact same sounds you would get from something like NCR, neurocranial restructuring therapy, which is where the sutures are literally loosening and you can hear it. You should feel relief. You should feel your breathing temporarily improve, and you should feel everything open up. Now, obviously, this in the exact same way that palate expanders are temporary because they cause relapse, because they adapt the bones and rip the suture faster than your muscles can adapt, this will be temporary as well. In the exact same way that some of you may have said or heard me say that hard mewing isn't ideal. The balance is this loosens the fascia and loosens the sutures in combination with proper tongue posture, myo habits, like chewing, swallowing, breathing, and activating the facial muscles. This becomes permanent because your tongue acts as your natural retainer. So it's a given that you should be suction mewing throughout the day, maintaining proper habits, and nailing absolutely everything else, including your diet, your lifestyle, and your overall health. Remember, this goes in combination with tackling the root cause, which is your health. This isn't about superficial cringe looks maxing techniques, which are aimed to temporarily boost your attractiveness, to inflate your own ego, etc. Obviously, looks matter, but even more important is health. And the reason we find anything attractive in the first place is because we are biologically hardwired to find it healthy, or it's seen as healthy. So that's the way to view it, and that's a sustainable way of thinking and going about this stuff. So you're going to repeat that movement throughout 3 minutes. That will end up being maybe 15, 18 times that you follow up. Each time you will get progressively better. You will learn which exercises and which fascia loosening exercises to do beforehand, which will loosen things more for you. And this will be insane. Like, this is the speed boost. I've never mentioned it on social media. I've never made a YouTube video about this. This is the key to progressing things faster and more efficiently. And people think, okay, well, why do I have to do this? Why isn't there another shortcut? Why isn't there a device I can use? Well, nothing can mimic the body. People like to believe that there are shortcuts, but in reality, they just use the not believing in something like Thumbpulling as an excuse to not put the effort in, to not take action. Again, nature is king. Everything we find naturally beautiful is because it is natural. You can't really mimic true human beauty with artificial external devices or procedures, etc. So in 98% of cases, this is the most effective way of going about things, particularly if you actually know what to do and how to hold yourself accountable and how to integrate it properly. And this is a very good start for most people. Now, there are also 2 other positions: the front of your palate, behind your incisors, and the back of your palate. Not on the very, very back, just slightly further forward than the back molar, well before the wisdom teeth, etc. So the middle of your palate, front, and the back. like that. Now, the middle of your palate is obviously the most important. In all of them, you should be pushing kind of diagonally upwards and outwards. That's the key kind of movement so you can provide proper resistance. You should repeat this 3-minute process twice a day. That's what I would recommend. You can do it more. The more you do it, the more effective the results will be, because it's basically an exponential thing. The more you loosen the fascia and the sutures and the faster you recorrect, the quicker you get the results. However, you need to do it sustainably. And there are obviously also diminishing returns. So I would say that if you were to thumb pull for 24 hours straight, of course you'd see amazing results. But again, that's the same thing as like a palate expander. Unless you're having proper chewing, swallowing, breathing and adaptations to the muscles, then everything becomes temporary. So it needs to be a gradual process. You need to be doing 3-minute sessions 2-3 times a day in addition to everything else, so that you can create long-lasting permanent results. And the key thing to view is a lot of people think that this needs to be permanent, that you need to do this every day for the rest of your life. You don't. I know it's a cringe, crazy term, but it is natural. Your thumbs are linked to your body. It's biologically regulated by your own nervous system. So when you get to a certain point where you loosen everything and you feel happy, you don't need to keep doing it, because you have your tongue. Your tongue is your natural retainer. It's the key to this entire process. And so when your tongue acts as a natural retainer, and when things become permanent, you'll maintain permanent passive results without having to do anything. Remember, this is a scale. From birth, you have perfect everything. Then you become this. You go on a straight, diagonal, positively proportional line. Then what happens with most people is they start decently fine, then they all fall off, right? And so what you need to do is just be kicked back onto the original line. You literally need to be recorrected back onto the original line. And if you re-enter that line, it's still a positive correlation, because you'll have the necessary habits to receive permanent passive results. And that's the way to go about it. That is the true effect of thumb pulling. So the routine to go about: loosen everything, nail the follow-up, nail thumb pulling 2.0, do it for 3 minutes, 2 times a day. Don't neglect every other aspect of your life. Remember the importance of proper suction mewing. You can join the community and speak with me directly if you want to speedrun the results and really become the best version of yourself and finally take action. And that is it. Stop being absolutely cooked. Have an amazing day. And that was the Thumbpulling 2.0 full guide. All I want is for the entire world to become healthy and good looking and stop being sad, ugly, and depressed. And so hopefully this video is a step in the right direction. You're all legends.